another edition of Inside Cowboys Training Camp, driven by Ford, on site of Cowboys Training Camp 2023 in Oxnard, California. Alongside Haley Sutton, I'm Kyle Yeomans, back with another update from the campgrounds, and we've got a lot to update after just a couple of practices. It feels like everything has happened. Not only did they sign Trayvon Diggs, which we talked about, but we've seen some players go down, unfortunately. We've seen some players elevate into a couple different plays. But let's start on the defensive side of the football. A couple injuries, which are a part of training camp. Donovan Wilson, Israel Mukuamu both leave practice early. Big loss for that Cowboys secondary.
Yeah, the good thing is, though, and I want to start with this as well, is that they're not expected to be devastating injuries in terms of that roster and really that position group. Mike McCarthy told us this morning that both would probably be multi-week injuries. Donovan Wilson dealing with a calf injury and Israel Mukuamu with a hamstring injury. So obviously two things you want to get nipped in the bud before the actual season begins, but it obviously means that their training camp is likely over.
And that's unfortunate for both guys, one of which coming off of a contract, one of which trying to build a bit of momentum as a young corner, young safety in this league, and I think both of those guys would have valued that time. We'll talk more with Nick Harris about the safety position and the secondary as a whole in just a couple moments. Let's talk about one of the guys that had some success against that secondary, Jaylen Tolbert, who a lot of Cowboys fans have their eye on in this training camp. Started off with a bang. He had a couple big-time receptions in 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 drills.
I think Jaylen Tolbert knew coming into this camp that this was going to be a little bit of a make or break for him, especially when he's been so candid about how difficult last season was for him in terms of learning the playbook and getting settled in with the rest of this group. And he's got this bounce to him a little bit. Coming off of practice, I had a chance to just kind of say hi to him, and he was so excited running off. And that's the kind of energy you expect out of these guys, especially when they have so much pressure on them, you know, to be the guy, so to speak. So I'm really excited for him. He's got some great abilities, and I think we'll continue to see that at camp.
Confident and comfortable. He looks both of those so far in his second training camp, and it's a completely different player than what we've seen in the past, and that's just building off of the mini camp and the OTA that he had in store. And we've talked about it already that Zach Martin, of course, is not a part of training camp so far this year, but up front on the offensive line, we got our first looks at what the starting offensive line could look like. Terrence Steele at right tackle. Of course, you expect Zach Martin to fill in, but for now, it's Josh Ball getting the right guard snaps, Tyler Biadasz at center, Tyler Smith at left guard, and then at left tackle, the hefty Tyron Smith out there again. What have you seen from the offensive line so far?
I think this is such a good opportunity for Josh Ball to really reset what Cowboys fans and what this coaching staff thinks of him, because when I think of Josh Ball, the Houston game comes to mind. Sure. When Terrence went down, and it obviously wasn't his best performance, but the good thing about training camp is that all of that's in the past. So it's a really good opportunity for him in the event that Zach Martin can't get something done. But for a lot of these other guys as well, Mike McCarthy's talked about it over and over, how the young guys are going to have to step up, and that's the case with the offensive line.
Going to have to see somebody step up, and Ball has been inserted in there, but also you're taking a look at that offensive line depth a little bit during these early rotations. Still haven't gotten the pads on. That comes next week on Inside Cowboys Training Camp. But when we come back, Nick Harris joins the show for the first time, and we take a deeper look into the secondary. What's going on in the back half of that Cowboys defense?
Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford, is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by your Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. This segment is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys.
Man, it's a lot of great players, you know, that came through this great organization. A lot of players that I look up to, you know, who wouldn't want to play for the Cowboys? You know, it's a great organization. The history is, you know, speaks for itself. So it's an honor to just put on the star and be able to play the game at a high level.
Stephon Gilmore excited to play with a star on the side of his helmet. The Cowboys are happy to have him in his first training camp as a member of the Dallas Cowboys. Welcome back to Inside Cowboys Training Camp, driven by Ford. That slot was brought to you by Sleep Number. We've got Nick Harris for the first time on the show this summer. And, Nick, it has been a lot of up and down storylines for this secondary. Let's start with Stephon Gilmore. Having him back in the fold is a huge add for Al Harris, for Dan Quinn, and really that entire defense.
Yeah, that goes without being said. Being able to bring in a veteran presence like Stephon Gilmore and the resume that he has, the track record, and being able to pair that with Trayvon Diggs, I think that's going to be big time for this defense moving forward.
Along those same lines, though, with the good, there always seems to come the bad, right? We got an update from Mike McCarthy on Donovan Wilson, as well as Israel Mukuamu. It sounds like they're going to miss a couple of weeks. So you gain Stephon Gilmore, but what do you lose in losing a guy like Donovan Wilson, especially when he just signed that new contract?
Yeah, you're going to lose locker room leadership as far as on the field, but you still have him off the field, and I think that's going to be the benefit still. And it allows this safety group to get adjusted, the depth of that safety room. It allows him to get more reps. So, as long as he's ready by week 1 and he's ready to go, then I don't think this hurts in the long run for the Cowboys.
And a bit of a follow-up on that one, Israel Mukuamu, for the most part, he needed this camp to really show exactly what he could do to get into a rotation. How big is it to have him miss some time out here in Oxnard and valuable practices, especially when you don't have a whole lot to go by?
Yeah, it especially hurts for Israel Mukuamu, especially once Donovan Wilson went down, because that was probably his opportunity to get on the field even more as well. So in a perfect world, you would like to see Mukuamu get back on the field a little bit earlier, just to get those extra reps during the preseason and in training camp. But we'll see how that goes. Mike McCarthy did say today that both injuries are expected to be multi-week, but he doesn't have an exact timeline just yet.
A positive off of that, though, and a theme with training camp really is next man up mentality. Mike McCarthy talked about that in his press conference as well, and the name that was dropped was none other than Marquise Bell. How important are these reps going to be in the next couple of days?
Yeah, shout out to Florida A&M. Marquise Bell is going to have his opportunity here in training camp. He was able to step in immediately once Donovan Wilson went down yesterday, and he's going to be able to step in for the rest of training camp, it looks like. So these are big-time reps for a young guy, and being able to prove his worth on this team, not only to earn a roster spot, but to potentially earn a rotation spot.
Bell, who was added as an undrafted free agent last year at the safety spot, and they've really invested in the secondary these last few years. They spent a draft pick on Eric Scott Jr. this past April, and he also shined in his first training camp practices. He had an interception on Wednesday off of a tip pass from Simi Fehoko. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit, but tell us what you've seen from Eric Scott Jr. so far, and can he do what Deron Bland did last year and maybe work his way into a rotation?
Yes, if you remember, the Cowboys traded up to go get him in the top of the 6th round in April in the NFL draft. They really liked what he had coming out of Southern Miss, and it's his coverage skills, his sticky coverage that they really liked. Will McClay talked him up quite a bit in the press conference after the draft, and you saw that yesterday. His sticky coverage, it allowed multiple pass breakups. It allowed that interception on Simi Fehoko. Even if it was a tip pass, it's about being in the right place at the right time. We've seen that a lot with Trayvon Diggs throughout the years. I think the one area he would need to improve in is his run game, but that's why he's a rookie. He's got time.
Got time to grow. That's what training camp is all about. The newest member of DallasCowboys.com media, Nick Harris, joining us. You can catch his work, of course, online and throughout Inside Cowboys training camp all summer long. But when we come back, we're going to get a deeper dive into Simi Fehoko and Jaylen Tolbert, these two young wide receivers fighting for a roster spot. We'll give you an update when we come back right after this.
This segment was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys.
Go Cowboys!
It's the final segment of Inside Cowboys training camp, driven by Ford from Oxnard, California. Wrapping things up with Haley Sutton. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Who has the edge? We talked about Jaylen Tolbert earlier. Simi Fehoko had a drop that turned into an interception, but still had a pretty decent first couple practices. Who do you think has that early edge?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you look at these battles because one day doesn't define who these players are, and yet that's going to be the conversation of the day. So I think currently, if we're basing it off of day one, it's Jaylen Tolbert, but who knows, Simi can come out here and have a blast of a day at practice and switch everything up. So I think they're still neck and neck.
Yeah, neck and neck. Still a long time. We're just
Plenty
a couple practices in. We're going to make sure we keep you updated with more Inside Cowboys training camp coming up tomorrow. For Haley Sutton and our entire Dallas Cowboys crew, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long from Oxnard.
Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford, was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by your Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.
Go Cowboys!